models of minimal effects, communication and participatory approach. The lesson also offers a wider interpretation for different kinds of models of communication. Further, the lesson offers you valuable insights into how the earliest models of communication developed by Harold Lasswell has become highly disputable. It also offers the alternative models developed by Paul Lazarsfeld based on the way the messages flow from an individual to another. The lesson tries to draw distinction between strong effects model and minimal effects model of communication based on their persuasive ability to influence the society at large. To show how flow of human messages is directed from source to destination in propaganda, to inform the learners that both strong effects model and minimal effects model appear to be still active in the domain of communication, to draw distinction between various models of communication in the manner they are targeted to influence the individuals of society. Wider interpretations of communication models. This lesson has wider objectives. On the one hand, it seeks to bring together and to present in a succinct and accessible form many of the models which have been developed to describe or explain the process of mass communication. On the other hand, it aims to represent the main lines of thought about mass communication which have emerged during 40 years of research. At certain points, we have drawn our own models to reflect important conceptual developments of relatively new fields of inquiry. In this much revised edition, over 10 years, we have omitted some earlier models and added new ones, both in order to take account of development in the field and to extend the range. Some of the early basic models are certainly outdated, but we have kept them for historical reasons and because they provided their foundations for later work. There is more than one way of telling the history of ideas about mass communication, and the one we have chosen follow a tradition in which mass communication can be seen as a specific form of a general phenomenon in which the main elements of sender, message and receiver take on distinctive characteristics and meanings. We hope to shed light on these meanings by starting with some very simplified and general versions of what any communication relationship involves and then proceeding to deal with the effects of mass communication and with the relationships which hold among us the main participants and between the participants and their society. In focusing on mass communication, we have to inevitably to neglect interesting development in the study of inter and interpersonal communication and of communication structures and flows within the groups and organizations. Nevertheless, our own view of mass communication is of a process which is coextensive and interactive with other types of communication, network and process. While different specialisms have emerged in the study of communication which seem to have little in common by the way of theory, method and aim, we would prefer not to mark clear boundaries around the substance of any one communication system. For the purpose of this lesson, it deals to consider a model as a consciously simplified description in graphic form of a piece of reality. A model seeks to show the main elements of any structure or process and the relationships between these elements. Deutsch notes the following main advantages of models in the social sciences. Firstly, they have an organizing function by ordering and relating systems to each other and by providing us with images of wholes that might not otherwise perceive. A model gives a general picture of a range of different particular circumstances. Secondly, it helps in explaining by providing in a simplified way information which would otherwise be complicated or ambiguous. This gives the model a heuristic function since it can guide the student or researcher to key points of process or system. Thirdly, the model may make it possible to predict outcomes or the course of events. It can at least be a basis for assigning probabilities to various alternative outcomes and hence for formulating hypotheses in research. Some models claim only to describe the structure of a phenomenon. In this sense, a diagram of the components of a radio set could be described as structural. Other models, which we call functional, describe systems in terms of energy, forces and their direction, the relations between the parts and the influence of one part on another. The models presented here fall mainly into the latter category simply because all communication is to some degree dynamic and involves some elements of process or change. Even so, some of the models are very simple and tell us little about the forces at work which relate elements to each other, While models in general can be purely verbal or diagrammatic or mathematical, we have presented only those which are both verbal and diagrammatic. It has been argued against the use of models that they tend to trap their originators and users within rather limited confines, which they then become eager to defend against attack. Such a tendency can have a delaying effect on the development of a science, although this has probably not happened in the case of communication research, where old models have tended to be soon discarded or modified. A similar risk is that a model or even a succession of models can tend to perpetuate some initial questionable but fundamental assumptions about the components of model or the processes at work. An example in this field of communication is the tendency to represent communication as one directional process in which a sender deliberately tries to influence a receiver. Such a representation tends to deny the circularity, negotiability and openness of much communication. It should be at least be remembered that there are some risks in using models even for heuristic purposes. They are inevitably incomplete, oversimplified and involve some concealed assumptions. There is certainly no model that is sustainable for all purposes and all levels of analysis, and it is important to choose the correct model for the purpose one has in mind. One of the purposes of this lesson is to give some indication of the proper purpose and level of different models, partly by showing how they have been used in communication research. The reader should become aware of the possibilities of testing models against circumstances or cases and of adopting any given model to suit the chosen participation. The models presented are not so sacred that they cannot easily be given a somewhat different shape and formulation. It should become apparent that anyone is in a position to construct their own models of a given aspect of the communication process, and we hope that this lesson will encourage students of mass communication to adopt this process as a means of elucidation. We view models primarily as aids to thought, which are especially appropriate in the study of communication. Why they should be so appropriate, not easy to demonstrate, but it may stem from the fact that communication is a binding force in social relationships without at the same time being visible or having tangible and permanent forms. Acts of communication take predictable or recurrent forms within a given structure of relationships and have consequences for this structure without being readily open to observation. There is consequently an attraction in being able to draw the lines which stand for the links we know to exist but cannot see, and to use other devices to show the structure, topography, strength and direction of relationships. So much of the subject of communication has to be dealt with in verbal abstraction, that is an aid and relief to have at least something fixed in graphic form, however much the element of abstraction may remain. Definitions and terms. The central concept in this lesson is communication. It has been defined in a number of ways, but we do not wish to need to be tied down to one particular definition, since the others we refer to have different notions of the concept, but the following examples give us some ideas of the variety of meanings involved. The transmission of information, ideas, attitudes or emotion from one person or group to another, primarily through symbols. In the most general sense, we have communication wherever one system, a source, influence another, the destination, by manipulation of alternative symbols which can be transmitted over the channel connecting them. Communication may be defined as social interaction through messages. Thus, in the most general terms, communication implies a sender, a channel, a message, a receiver, a relationship between sender and receiver, an effect, a context in which communication occurs, and a range of things to which messages refer. Sometimes, but not always, there is an intention or purpose to communicate or to receive. Communication can be an action on others, an interaction with others, and a reaction to others. Something the originators of models point to two additional processes, that of encoding at the sender end of the model and that of decoding at the receiver end. Encoding means that the message is translated into a language or code suitable for the means of transmission and the intended receivers. Decoding refers to the retranslation of the messages in order to extract meaning. In a conversation between two persons, the encoding function is performed by the speech mechanism, and for non-verbal communication, muscles making possible gestures, etc. In such a case, the sense of hearing and sight perform the decoding function. In mass communication, encoding can refer to technical transformations necessary for the transmission of signals and also to the systematic choice of words, pictures, formats according to established procedures and the expectation held about audience's experience. In many models, the concept of feedback is employed in general. This refers to any process by which the communicator obtains information about whether and how the intended receiver has indeed received the messages. Such information can help to modify ongoing or future communication behavior. In a face-to-face communication situation, this may take the form of questions, requests to repeat something, gestures, responses and so on. In mass communication, feedback of these kinds is mainly replaced by audience research, sales, figures, studio audiences, tryouts, letters and phone calls. But it can also take the form of response directly from superiors, colleagues, friends and other personal contacts. As we have seen, many of the basic terms in communication take different meanings when they refer to mass communication, and we need to have a different characterization of the latter. Mass communications comprise the institutions and techniques by which specialized groups employ technological devices to disseminate symbolic content to large, heterogeneous and widely dispersed audiences. This points to most of the variations and additions that we need to take account of. The sender in mass communication is always part of an organized group and often a member of an institution which has functions other than communication. The receiver is always an individual but may often be seen by the sending organization as a group or collectively with certain general attributes. The channel no longer consists of social relationships, means of expression and sensory organs, but includes large-scale technologically based distribution devices and systems. These systems will still have social components since they depend on law, custom and expectation. The message in mass communication is not a unique and transitory phenomenon, but a mass-produced, infinitely repeatable symbolic structure, often of great complexity. Of particular significance in mass communication are the public and open nature of all communication, the limited and controlled access to sending facilities, the impersonality of the relationship between sender and receiver, the imbalances of the relationship between them, the intervention of institutionalized arrangements between sender and receiver. In reality, there is no single universal form of the mass communication process, and the diversity of the reality accounts in part for the multiplicity of possible models to represent the whole or parts of it. Mass communication research, stimulated primarily by concern over the political influence of the mass press and later over the moral and social consequences of film and radio, extends back at least until the beginning of the present century. Research into the communication in general had its origins in the wish to test and increase efficiency and effectiveness in the spheres of education, propaganda, telecommunication, advertising and public and human relations. Research activity began with practical concerns and was fed by the developments in psychology and sociology and by general advances in methodology, especially the use of experiments, social surveys and statistics. It was not really until after the Second World War that a focus on communication as such was articulated. Just as much early empirical research was largely an American phenomenon, so it was in the United States in the post-war periods that the possibility of a science of communication was first discussed. The decade of the 1950s proved to be fertile in model building activity, which can be taken as an expression of the search for growth and unity in the study of communication. According to Johnson and Clare, it was a mathematician, Claude Shannon, who first provided the stimulus to social scientists to formulate their thinking about communication in model form. The initial appeal of this approach can probably be related, first of all, to the predominance of the current interest in the effects and effectiveness. Secondly, to its consistency with the stimulus response model of behavior control and learning, which was fundamental to psychology. And thirdly, to the growing wish to order and codify existing knowledge and inquiry in mass communication research. An early point of departure in the model making tradition was the separation out of models concerned expressly with the mass communication. It was essential to make specific allowance for the distinctive features of mass communication which have been briefly described. The work of Wesley and MacLean was specially important in emphasizing the role of the media organizations in controlling the channels of mass communication and in mediating relations between sources in society and the general public. Their model also bridges the gap between the original basic model of communication with its emphasis on purposive transmission of messages and the seemingly purposeless flow of mass communication. In their model, the mass communicator acts as an agent for the receiver and an interpreter of needs and interests. The process is guided more by anticipated audience demand than by communicator purpose. Malczyk's model develops some of these ideas and also firmly reminds us that both mass communicator and audience operate within a social context and a small group of environment. Though models of communication are usually conceptual, the early research on the message flows from top to bottom has shown that such messages have strong influence on the collective psyche of the society. Such flows of messages are part of state's campaign for a particular cause or a mobilization of people toward a specific political goal and hence are called propagandist. Earlier to development and adoption of mechanistic processes of communication as models of communication, communication is conceived as a flow of messages from top to bottom in a linear fashion with persuasion as a sole objective to gain. The foundation for such dominant linear model of communication was laid during the Second World War. Harold Laswell, a senior political scientist who was acting as an advisor to the US government during the Second World War, developed a communication model which is also called as magic bullet theory or hypodermic needle theory. His ideas culminating into the theory have originated from his famous work Propaganda Technique in the World War, published in 1927. In his 1948 article, The Structure and Function of Communication in Society, Laswell envisaged the flow of messages in a linear model in the order who says what to whom in what channel and with what effect. Laswell developed this model to counter the Nazis' propaganda adopted in films to persuade the Germans for continuation of war and for the ultimate success of Nazis. Following Laswell's linear model of communication 1948, the definition of propaganda has got grounded firmly in the literature of media studies and political rhetoric. The structuralism and function of communication in society was reprinted in 1949, 60, 1966 and 1971. Accordingly, propaganda is defined as the expression of opinions or actions carried out deliberately by individuals or groups with a view to influence the opinion or actions of the individuals or groups, predetermined ends, psychological manipulations. This is the underlying principle of magic bullet theory or hypodermic needle theory. Consequently, the model is also described as strong effects model or direct effects model. George Grebner, as quoted by Berger, the founder of the cultivation theory, expanded Laswell's model in 1956 to focus attention on perception and reaction by the perceiver and the consequence of the communication. In 1958, Richard Braddock suggested that model be expanded to consider two additional elements that Braddock argued it ignored: for what purpose and under what circumstances. Braddock model is more applicable to cultivation theory. According to media scholar Michael Real, subsequent attempts to add an entertainment function and an advertising function failed to capture Laswell's intent, but provided the largest use and gratification theory. In 1993, communication scholars Dennis McWile and Sven Hindal referred to Laswell's model as perhaps the most famous single phrase in communication research. McWile and Hindal also considered the model as formula that would be transformed into a model once boxes were drawn around each element and arrows connected the elements. In 1995, Stanley Barron and Dennis Davis recognized it as verbal model of the communication process. In 2008, Greenberg and Salven acknowledged that Laswell's model of communication has been widely adopted but expressed. Although Laswell's model draws attention to several key elements in the mass communication process, it does no more than describe general areas of study. It does not link elements together with any specificity, and there is no notion of an active process. But unfortunately, it has become highly disputable. Firstly, several sociologists and anthropologists did not believe that there can be such strong effects for media messages, despite reinforcement and repetition several times in media, they found people are hardly carried away by such persuasive messages. While a section of sociologists argued against the validity of such strong efforts for media messages emanating either from state or from private agency through media outlets, there are many communication scientists who argued in favor of Lacewell's strong efforts model even today. It was regarded by many communicologists and public relations scholars as one of the earliest and most influential communication models. Today's advertising campaigns for many products are similar to the propaganda mechanism, and the success of such ad campaign makes us believe that there is truth in Lacewell's strong efforts model to a great extent. Lacewell's theory of linear messages flows led to establishing political psychology, a new branch of political science appropriating Freud's psychology. However, Lacewell's contemporary Paul Lazarsfeld, who is also a political scientist in the US, has advocated minimal efforts model in the place of strong efforts model. Lazarsfeld's interest in the persuasive elements of mass media became a topic of great importance during the Second World War, and this resulted in increased attention and functioning for communication research. By the 1950s, there were increased concerns about the power of the mass media in the light of Lacewell's strong efforts model. Along with Elihu Koch, Lazarsfeld published Personal Influence, which propounded the theory of two-step flow of communication, opinion, leadership, and of community as filters for the mass media. His research led to a marriage between interpersonal communication and mass communication. Paul Lazarsfeld has proposed that the conceived strong efforts of linear flow of messages is not really there. He argued that the linear messages cannot directly influence the opinion of the people. However, forcefully, the people are repeatedly subjected to such messages. He alternatively suggested that the flow of messages directed to the people through their peer groups, opinion leaders, help form an opinion. Thus, he has brought into the consideration single-step flow of messages or two-step flow of messages. Single-step flow of messages. It is a context in which messages flow from media to audience directly. While Lacewell viewed it as very influential, Lazarsfeld was in opposite view. But latest research by Bennett and Menahem showed that with the changing technologies and growing atomization of society, individual turned the largest source of reception. As such, single listener reception cannot be ruled out. Thus, what has been rejected as non-consequential in 1950s has now come to be regarded as valid by 2006. There is no such study which contradicted this till date. Two-step flow of messages. Lazarsfeld found that there is no direct media impact on the audiences, but however, if media messages are channeled through opinion leaders and then to relevant groups, the messages turn attractive for the audiences. Further, over a two-step flow of messages, there would be a fruitful discussion about the messages with opinion leaders and among members of democratic societies. As such, two-step flow or multiple step flow of messages are more likely to influence society than single-step flows of messages. According to Lazarsfeld, since media messages flow in the two-step multi-steps to audiences, there is only minimal effects for media messages as opposed to what Lacewell construed as strong effects of messages of media. Participatory approach. There is close relationship between single-step flow, two-step flow of communication models and participatory approach. All the three are dialogical primarily. Participatory approach involves the members of a given community which will assemble at one place, share information and negotiate with stakeholders to arrive at an informed decision regarding its own development. It is, as mentioned in the previous lesson, quite opposed to the top to bottom dominant paradigm. It is purely democratic and opposed to hegemonic practices of imposing. It is part of the counter offense to the dominant paradigm. In participatory development, communication mass media and traditional media, it intends to return to the roots of its meaning, which similarly to the term community originate from Latin word communis, that is common. Therefore, the purpose of communication should be to make something common or to share meanings, perceptions, worldviews or knowledge. In the context, sharing implies an equitable division of what is being shared, which is why communication should almost be naturally associated with a balanced two-way flow of information. The participatory approach to development needs to meet the following criteria: initiate a national sustainable DSE for supporting rural development programs and projects, creating groups of professionals to guide and monitor regional DSEs, form an advisory group that advises government and other agencies concerning development related programs and projects. Participatory approach passes through 6 main stages. Situation assessment needs to be done through the participatory rural communication appraisal PRCA, communication strategy design, participatory design of messages and discussion themes, communication methods and the materials of development, management and implementation of development programs, monitoring and evaluation. To help improve the program impact on stakeholders, it is important to set up clear standards and indicators based on the objective set. More importantly, monitoring and evaluation data contributes to a planning for program sustainability and self-sufficiency. The lesson has offered a vivid and clear explanation as to how to distinguish between strong efforts model of communication and a minimal or medium efforts model of communication. While strong efforts model of communication is a top to bottom, the minimal efforts model of communication is a horizontal model of communication. It is as though a group of people standing in a circle with their hands stretching between themselves, connecting everyone in the chain. Participatory model of communication primarily finds its immense application in 2 types of societies. Firstly, third world countries, and secondly in countries which practice parliamentary approach. At the same time, one cannot deny the significance of strong efforts model of communication. There are enough reasons to believe that strong efforts model of communication is still showing impact in many areas such as advertising and bureaucracy. The capitalist societies in the Western countries are still following top to bottom flow of communication. So is the case with feudalist societies like India. Though one would argue that India stands for democratic form of governance, quite often they are not. Indian polity slips to top to bottom flow of models as the political parties which rule the country or states are run by single individuals. This is the core of the argument why many sociologists still argue that the strong efforts model is still alive. Alternatively, this lesson has dealt with the benefits of participatory form of communication in which societies or communities derive maximum benefit of education and entertainment.